Hello and welcome to Elevate Your Wealth. I'm your host, Casey Elkins, co-founder and managing partner at Elevated Financial Management. We've got an exciting show. Today, we're talking about Social Security. There's a lot of gotchas with Social Security, different filing strategies. How do we make sure that you select the right filing strategy for your specific situation? And it's something that you're going to want to pay attention to. As always, I'm joined by Mark Stimpson, my friend, father-in-law, and business partner. How you doing today, Mark?
I'm doing good, Case. I'm looking forward to the show, as you mentioned. I love talking about Social Security. I'm a nationally certified Social Security advisor, so it's dear to our heart and to every plan that we put together. But before we get talking about that, we got to talk about the Mariners a little bit right now. I'm fired up, man. They're playing good ball right now. We've got a really cool office set up with great Mariner stuff. Casey's wall in his office is really, really cool. We show that to our clients. And again, we just want to thank everybody in Seattle that's watching. Our viewers matter to us. And again, a lot of them are sports fans. We're going to have a setup really cool with our Seahawks. And so again, we love being in Seattle, and we love being able to help people that are getting ready to retire or maybe have just retired and put together a plan that's going to help them to be very successful and take a lot of stress and worry off of their plate.
Yeah, the Mariners have been doing really good. We'll take everything that we can get, right? It's been a rough few years, well, maybe even longer than that, but especially the last few years have been kind of difficult. But no, they've been doing really good, which is exciting. And, we love going to the games. It's just something about being at the game, right? Yeah. It's fun. Yeah. You love being there. Even if they don't play well that night, it is a longer season, of course. There's always that excuse, right? But no, it's been good. And I'm a season ticket holder, so we get to go to a lot of games, which is fun. And we really do love being at the park and watching the team. So, but to kind of get back into the Social Security side of things, sometimes what we hear is, well, Social Security is pretty straightforward, right? I mean, you just take Social Security at full retirement age, which is 67 for most people at this point. And if you're not going to take it at 67, well, then why not just take it as early as you can at age 62? Because Social Security is going to be gone tomorrow anyways, right? So you might as well get it as early as you can. So how do you feel about that? Or I can really say, how do we feel about that?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So Social Security planning, again, is something if you go on the internet, you're going to get every view and opinion about when you should do it. There's a lot of people that believe you should take it at 62 because it's probably going to go away. Others would say, no, wait till 70. All I want to help our viewers to understand is your situation is so unique to you. It may be very beneficial to wait till age 70, right? I will say this, the bulk of our clients, we don't wait. I turned mine on a few weeks ago because I didn't want to have to go to the office and prove that I'm really Mark Stimpson, right? And so, again, I could have waited, but again...
Wait, you are Mark Stimpson, right? Just so
yes, I am.
Okay. You just didn't want to have to prove it.
That's right. And I'm worried about offices closing and that.
I know,
all of that discussion's kind of died down. But I think there is something that I want to highlight. We know that within probably close to 9 years now that the trust fund is probably going to run out. Mm-hmm. But people think that their paycheck comes from the trust fund each month. That's not the case. It comes from people that work every day that are working now. They generate the taxes, FICA, right? FICA,
yeah.
Right? That's going to bring those paychecks to those that are on Social Security, right? And so, again, you don't want to make an emotional decision based on thinking that Social Security is going away, because that's absolutely not the case. I don't believe that at all. So you want to do some planning where you're smart about this, because when you claim matters, like you mentioned, if you're born 1960 or later, your full retirement age date is 67.
Right.
Now, if you were born from 55 to 60, depending on the year, like I was born in 57, so I was 66 in 6 months when I became full retirement age as far as Social Security goes. So again, depending on when you were born and your individual circumstances is going to help dictate whether you should go and at what time. And so again, you want to work with somebody that specializes in this type of planning, because there's spousal benefit, there's survivor benefit, there is disability, and a couple of different things when it comes to disability. So again, you need to work with someone that knows what the heck they're talking about, right? Because you could get some bad advice and make a decision that, again, and we talked about this before on shows and other classes, that could be completely wrong for your individual situation. So please, if you're watching today, you got questions about Social Security, you don't know what to do, and you're getting ready to pull the, we call it pull the trigger, right, or pull the lever, you want to make sure you're making a decision that's smart.
Right. And, you know, with Social Security, it's an interesting thing because it does seem to be kind of generally thought that you really just, you started early at 62, or you pull it at full retirement age, or you wait till 70. And of course, when you start Social Security is very important, right? We're not saying that it isn't, but sometimes the importance of that is very understated, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the impact that that can have on your spouse, right? Yep. And if you take Social Security before full retirement age and you're still working, that can be a problem as well. So we'll talk more about that. But the Social Security piece is a very important piece to the puzzle. It may not be there may not be as many filing strategies as there once was, right? You know, a number of years ago, there were some different options. Exactly, right? But the Bipartisan Act of 2015 did change that. And so we have to change, we have to adjust, but ultimately it's about figuring out how that Social Security piece will factor in to an overall plan. Right? Yep. That's really the key, because it can be easy to look at Social Security and say, well, if you want max Social Security, you just wait till 70 and then you're good to go. But you have to live long enough for that to actually pay off, right? Which, let's talk about that more when we come back for the break. So for our viewers at home, what we want to do is we want to offer a written financial plan put together by our team of financial planners. You would be able to come into our office, have a conversation with myself, with Mark, with the rest of our team, and we will put together a specific, custom-tailored written financial plan just for you based on your circumstances. It'll talk about Social Security, when you should start Social Security, what taxes will look like for your retirement, what your investments, how they perform in an up market and in a down market. So don't hesitate, pick up the phone. You see the number there on the screen, 844-342-7142. And again, it's a written financial plan, no obligation, completely complimentary. When we come back from our break, we're going to talk more about taxes, different strategies that we can use, and ultimately how it's going to affect your retirement right here on Elevate Your Wealth. Call 844-342-7142 for your own complimentary written financial plan with Risk Report. Why take unnecessary risk when you don't have to? At 65 years old, would you drive to the grocery store at 100 miles an hour if 40 miles an hour would get you there safely? When nearing retirement, are you still driving your investment accounts like you're in your 30s or 40s? Have you changed your investment elections since you first chose them in your retirement accounts at work? Call Casey, Mark, and the team at 844-342-7142 for your own investment risk report and written financial plan. Do you know exactly how much risk you're taking in your investment accounts? Now that you've accumulated a nest egg for retirement, you want to be certain the risk you're taking in those investments matches your goals and objectives. Call Mark, Casey, and their team at 844-342-7142 for your own complimentary risk report and written financial plan, or use the QR code below to begin scheduling your appointment. You may not have time to recover from taking too much risk.
You've got quite an extensive resume. Wow, so many years of management. I bet that was fun. So this job requires basic knowledge of the social media and video platforms, content creation, and SEO. How proficient are you in those areas?
Going back to work after retiring is not ideal. Plan your retirement right. Call now for your own complimentary portfolio review and tax analysis. Hello and welcome back to Elevate Your Wealth. I'm your host, Casey Elkins. Today we're talking about Social Security and the impact that it's going to have on your retirement. What can you do? What's the right way to play Social Security? And what are the options? So we want to talk specifically now about the survivor benefit and the spousal benefit. And very commonly, when folks are looking to start their Social Security, they miss what these two things mean, the differences between them, and how it's going to impact not only them, but specifically their spouse and the overall financial plan for the household. So, Mark, maybe you can share with us, what is the survivor, what is the spousal, and what are the impact that those have on retirees?
Yeah, this is important because there's confusion about this. I want to start with the spousal benefit. Many of you viewers may have had a spouse that maybe didn't work a lot, maybe has a very qualifies, has 10 years worth of work record, but didn't earn a lot. Now, that would be the situation in my household. My wife raised our children, so she's going to be going on a spousal benefit. She will qualify to go on 50% of mine. One of the key rules is I must be drawing for her to be able to do that. But here's something that gets missed or misunderstood. If I were to wait till 70, my wife doesn't get 50% of my 70 benefit. She only gets 50% of my full retirement age benefit, which is what it was at age 66 and 6 months because of the year I was born. That causes confusion. You don't want to make that mistake. If you do a spousal, now again, that is also on the premise that she waits till full retirement age. If let's say I'm drawing and I'm 68 and she wants to go, but she is only 65, let's say, she's not full retirement age yet, right? So if she goes, not only it's going to be based on my 66 number, 66 and 6 months, but she's also going to take a pretty substantial reduction because she's turned her Social Security on early. People don't think about that. The other big confusion is survivor benefit. Survivor's completely different. She will get what we call a spousal boost. If I were to pass away, my wife will get up to whatever my amount was. When I started drawing, right? So if I waited till 70, she would get, let's say she went at 67, she will get a boost up to my 70 number as a survivor, not a spousal. So if that's where waiting can make a huge difference for our spouses, right? So again, please, there's a lot of confusion about this. You need to talk to somebody that really understands the intricate rules that Social Security has, because it can really have a detrimental impact if you don't understand these rules and you make a decision thinking you're knowing what you're doing and you really don't. It can cause problems.
Maybe let's put a couple numbers to those scenarios, right? Because the percentages can be kind of difficult, I think, sometimes. So let's say, let's use your circumstance, Mark, and let's say you were going to start your Social Security at full retirement age and you were going to get $3,000 a month, right? It's hypothetical numbers. But let's say you were going to get $3,000 a month, but you decided to wait until age 70. And so that means you're going to get $4,000 a month. Yep. So for a spousal benefit, your wife, Lori, right, she would not receive half of the $4,000 amount. She would receive half of the $3,000 amount,
exactly.
Even though you waited those extra years, right?
Yep.
And so that is something that can be misunderstood, like you said.
Big time.
But where that waiting has a positive impact is, obviously, it's a higher amount, right? So you have to live a particular time frame. Let's talk about that in a second. But on the survivor benefit, she would be entitled to be boosted up to the higher amount. Had you waited to age 70, she would be entitled for the difference between hers and the $4,000, right? So essentially, she would get $4,000 a month in Social Security. Now, that brings into play a couple things. If we do wait till age 70, let me ask you this. Number one, how long do we have to live for that to be beneficial? Where is the crossover point? Let's start with that.
Yeah, I'm glad Casey's brought this up, because this, Matt, and I know you viewers are probably out there thinking about that. If I could have gone at 62 and I wait till 70, that's 8 years worth of benefits. Same way if I wanted to possibly turn on at, let's say, 66, it's a 4-year time period that you didn't get any checks, right? So to put that into perspective, we have run thousands of calculations for our clients over the years. And realistically, it's about 12 years that you need to live to recoup those years that you don't turn it on. So let's say I did wait till 70. I need to live to about 82 before it truly pays off. And that matters. That's the one thing Casey and I cannot know what's going to happen with each client, right? We don't know when your date of death is going to happen, right? If we did, it would make our planning a lot easier. So again, but the majority of people, actuaries know when we're going to die. Some are going to die sooner, but the bulk will die right on time, and then there are going to be ones that live into their 90s and possibly 100. In fact, a woman in Brazil just saw the news, and she died, the oldest known human now, at 116. Can you imagine, for that individual, did it matter when she turned her Social Security on? Well, in Brazil, they've got a different system. But the point is, if we live a long time, you need to understand what longevity risk and making the right decision based on maybe family history, right? We need to look at that with each client, because family history matters too. If your grandparents and parents died early, you may not want to wait. You may want to turn your Social Security on early. That's what we're trying to say, is everybody's situation is unique, and we don't want you to make a decision based on wrong knowledge, right? There's a lot of factors that go into this type of planning. So work with somebody that knows what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times we see too, without a plan in place, what happens is something called the widow's penalty, right?
Yes.
So this kind of came to mind as we're talking through this. And this is really important because in a married couple, right, of course you want to make sure that your spouse is taken care of. But very often, sometimes we can start to make assumptions that, well, the chances are that I will pass away first, or my spouse will pass away first. And so you kind of make these assumptions, and you haven't really given them full thought, right? You haven't had that entire conversation about what that really means. And so specifically with Social Security, among other things, but since we're talking about Social Security today, something comes in called the widow's penalty, where essentially if you have two Social Securities coming into the house, let's say one is $2,000 a month and one is $4,000 a month, right? So we've got the two coming in. So we got $6,000 total. If the one spouse passes away that was getting the $4,000, right? They pass away. Well, the other spouse keeps the $2,000, and then they get an additional $2,000. So they're up to $4,000 again, right? But remember, the original total was $2,000. So
gone.
Yeah, exactly. That's gone. So even though they get a boost, right? It's called a spousal boost. Even though they get that boost, ultimately, it's still a negative to the household. And so we see that this is something that gets missed a lot inside of a plan, what's called a spousal plan. We want to make sure that our spouse is taken care of regardless of what happens to us, and vice versa, right? We want to make sure that we're taken care of regardless of what happens to the spouse. And this is where planning is so important, and making sure that we understand the choices that we're making and the impact that they have on a retirement. So that being said, Mark, maybe you could share with our audience what they could expect if they're willing to give us a shout.
Everybody's viewing today is, we're talking about Social Security. There's a lot of question marks for most individuals about this. So please, if you've got questions about Social Security, you're getting ready to retire, maybe you're retiring from Boeing, you've saved at least $250,000 or more, these strategies are going to be really beneficial for you. But the point is, pick up the phone. Call us at 844-342-7142. Let's have a conversation about your situation. We're going to deal with taxes with you. We're going to talk about income. We're also going to talk about the medical piece, right? When I go on Medicare, do I go on a Medicare supplement or a Med Advantage plan? But specifically today, we're talking about Social Security and all of the pitfalls that can happen if we don't talk to somebody that knows what they're doing. So please pick up the phone, call us at 844-342-7142. Again, I want you to know you're going to keep your checkbook at home. We're just going to have a conversation about your situation. Again, that number is 844-342-7142.
Just like Mark said, friends, you see the number there on your screen. You can scan the QR code at the bottom. Please don't hesitate to give us a call. We're talking about Social Security. We're going to talk more about Social Security. We've discussed about waiting, delaying Social Security till age 70, the survivor benefit, the spousal benefit. When we come back, we're going to talk about taking Social Security early, and is Social Security still going to be here 10 or 15 years from now? So don't change the channel. Come right back to Elevate Your Wealth. Call 844-342-7142 right now for your own written financial plan. Having a clear path to retirement is more than just your savings. This review will include a complete risk analysis on your portfolio, a deep dive fee X-ray to determine how much you are and could be paying on those investments, a tax reduction report, and healthcare and legacy planning for you and your estate. To begin your retirement readiness review, call Casey, Mark, and the team at 844-342-7142 or use the QR code to schedule your appointment right away. Whether your retirement is coming soon or you want to be certain you can stay retired, the Written Financial Plan will help guide you through your retirement planning journey. Call Mark Casey and the team at 844-342-7142 or use the QR code to schedule your meeting today.
We know the market is going to get worse from here. This is the biggest monthly decline in 10 years. People's 401ks do.
Well, my investments are tanking. My retirement isn't going as planned. I can't believe I let my kid talk me into buying crypto. I mean, what is that anyway?
This was the fourth worst contraction in history.
So how are you two doing?
Your financial future doesn't have to be uncertain. Plan your retirement right. Call now for your own complimentary portfolio review and tax analysis.
Welcome back to Elevate Your Wealth. I'm your host, Casey Elkins. We're talking about Social Security today. We've discussed the survivor benefit, the spousal benefit, what it means to take your Social Security and delay it all the way to age 70. How is that going to affect things inside of your retirement plan? But now we want to talk about what it would mean if you were to start your Social Security early. Because we hear this a lot, Mark, right? That Social Security is going to be gone in 5 to 10 years anyways, right? So first, let's talk about what it means if we take our Social Security early at age 62, and then we will discuss what does it look like a few years from now when the trust fund does run out, right? How is that supposed to look? So let's start with that, Mark. What happens if we start our Social Security early?
Yeah, so you may need to take Social Security early. We're not trying to talk anybody out of doing that. But again, we don't want you to make an emotional decision that could be really bad for you in the long run because you thought it was going away, right? But something that gets missed a lot is what's known as the earned income test. The earned income test simply comes into play if you turn on Social Security, whether you do it at 62 or if your full retirement age is 67, if you do it at 66. The closer we get to our full retirement age, though, the less the penalty. So I want to explain this. If you're 62 years old and you decide to turn it on, you're going to realistically lose right at about 25 to 30% of your money, and it is a permanent penalty. I want to stress that. You can't change that. Now, there's a way to do that if you change that or do what we call a mulligan within 12 months of when you turned it on. You have 1 year to fix this problem. But once you get past 1 year, there is no going back and saying, I blew it, right? We've had that happen in a lot of the classes that we've taught with people that go, I didn't understand it that way. I want to go back and fix it. And they have that opportunity. But if you are 62 and you turn Social Security on, you have to worry. Maybe you did this at retirement. You didn't think you were going to go back to work. All of a sudden you retire. Now I'm kind of bored. I'd like to maybe do something part-time or find something you love doing, and you decide to pick up a little side gig, right? I'm going to get a little more income. Well, you have to be very, very careful about not earning, this year it's right at shy of $24,000. So let's just use $24,000 as that number. If you make for every $2 you make over that number, you're going to have to pay back $1 of your Social Security. That's a 50% penalty. And so you really want to know what you're doing. If you keep under that limit each year, that's great. You never have to worry about this. But if you make more than that, then it becomes an issue, right? Your Social Security check is going to go down. And so you want to know exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it, right? A lot of people they don't think they're going to work. They win early. Now all of a sudden they're like, I'd love to work a little bit. And now comes the big bad boogeyman, and you learn the hard way that now, this is a 50% penalty. It doesn't feel so good. And we don't want our viewers and our students to learn from what we call the school of hard knocks, because that can be painful.
Yeah, and it's something that really can easily be avoided, right?
Yep.
It just takes a little bit of conversation, a little bit of planning, right? And to put all this together. And we do see that a lot, right? I mean, there's one client in mind very specifically that came to a workshop that we teach, and we talk about Social Security at that workshop, right?
Yep.
And we had mentioned how this worked. I think specifically you had mentioned it in the workshop.
Yep.
And so he came into our office after the fact, and we sat down, and he had started Social Security like 9 months previously or something, right? And so he didn't understand that earned income test was going to be a big hurdle for him, because he was still at that point 3 or 4 years from retirement. And so, he was going to have to deal with that year after year after year, and going to have that reduced benefit locked in, right? Because he started Social Security early. And so he was able to take the mulligan, right? He had to pay back the money that he'd received, but that put him on a better path. And so again, all of that could have been avoided if he had had the conversation before, right? To make sure that things are working like they're supposed to. So Social Security is really important. Now, I know that there was during the break, we were talking about another client story that I think you wanted to share.
Yeah, this is really important because she thought that she was working with one of the big box stores, and they told her that they were going to help her with her Social Security planning. She turned 70. She was almost 71 years of age when I first talked with her. Come to find out, she had not turned her Social Security on because she thought she would get more. And now she's a year past, age 70, which is the longest anybody is going to wait. So she was completely in the dark, thinking her Social Security was still rising. And the bottom line was, now we could go back and get her 6 months worth of benefit, but she still lost 6 months worth of income, which was thousands and thousands of dollars, because she didn't have the right advice, and she was trusting individuals that didn't know what they were doing. And this is the first person I'd ever ran into that hadn't turned Social Security on and was older than 70. So this does happen, and she's a nurse on top of that. So again, these things do happen, and that's why working with someone that knows a lot about Social Security is really going to help that keep that from happening.
Yeah, and Mark, I did mention earlier that we wanted to talk about what Social Security might look like 10 or 15 years from now. You got maybe 30 seconds or so just to give a couple thoughts about what things, or at least what we think things might look like.
Yeah, just very quickly, the trust fund is going to run out. There's no doubt about that, but that doesn't mean Social Security is going to stop. That's the main thing. Now, could there be a reduction of 20 to 25% in your Social Security? That could happen as well. We just don't know yet. But do you have a plan that if that bad news does happen, that we have a way to fix it? That's what a plan really is going to allow us to do.
That's exactly right. And so now is your opportunity for our viewers at home. You see the number there on the screen, 844-342-7142. You can scan the QR code. That'll take you in to be able to set an appointment with us as well. But we will sit down and put together a written financial plan talking about Social Security, taxes, the investments that you have, how are they structured to make you successful, and what kind of income can you have in retirement? So again, you see the number on the screen. It's complimentary, no obligation. Don't hesitate. Give us a call. What you see here on the show is exactly what you see in our office. We want to thank you for watching. We're always excited to have you with us, and we'll see you next week right here on Elevate Your Wealth.